Good morning, everyone. It is week 42, and I just saw this cartoon today. I don't know if it's a new cartoon, but probably is because NFTs are pretty new, right? So a robber goes up to a person and says, "Give me a non-fungible token of the contents of your wallet." Okay, okay. Wait. Would you also like these dollars? You think I want your worthless fiat money? Say, that's a nice looking watch. Give me a string of characters representing it that I am the only person who owns the string of characters pertaining to your watch. When in the future. NFTs were controversial at first, but the rate of crimes which we care about went to zero almost immediately. So she's making an argument that, like a consequentialist argument, that NFTs are good because once thieves start robbing people for their NFTs, they're stealing nothing of value, right? Which, this argument is sort of predicated on the fact that NFTs are fundamentally worthless, and maybe that's true from the author's perspective, but value of something is what people will pay for it, right? And so if this an NFT for this watch, it is probably worthless, but if Disney releases a ultra rare golden moments NFT, then and people are willing to pay money for it, then it has value, right? And in fact, there have been many thefts of bitcoins and things like that. There have been times where entire money exchanges where like people would store their bitcoins and things like that in like a bank. The people who owned the bank just went mine and just stole it, right? Millions of dollars. Was it Fort Gox or Gex or whatever it was? What was it called? Mount Gox, that's one. Yeah. So it was a Bitcoin exchange that was handling 70% of all Bitcoin, and then 850,000 Bitcoins belonging to customers in the company were stolen. And so they've recovered 200,000 of them. Who knows? I don't know what happened to the rest. The value of Bitcoin was like up to like 60,000, right? So per Bitcoin. So 60,000 times 850,000 Bitcoins is $51 billion that were stolen. At the max value of Bitcoins. $51 billion. So, this comic is saying, well, it's all worthless, but if somebody, like I said, if somebody's willing to pay money for it, then, it's not worthless, right? And there have been a number of high-profile thefts like that. And if you don't store your bitcoins in an online bank or have some way of recovering it, which opens you up to theft, then you have the possibility that your hard drive dies and you lose your bitcoins that way. There's this guy in England, I think, who's like trying to pay the city to dig into the trash dump. English dump Bitcoin, if I'm remembering the story right. Man who accidentally threw out a Bitcoin fortune is offering $70 million to go into the city's dump and dig up the dump and hunt for the hard drive. Because it had 7,500 Bitcoins on it when he threw it away. And, if you do that math, what's the current value of Bitcoin? 41,000. So 45,000 times 41,606. There's $1.8 billion of Bitcoin in the town's dump here. And he's offering the town $70 million to go in there and dig it up. Because there's no way of recovering it, right? There's no if you lose your Bitcoin, you've lost it. It's gone. There's no recovery process. Okay, or if you do have a recovery process, then whoever you allow to recover your Bitcoin for you can steal it from you, like the Fort Gox people did. So Mount Gox, not Fort Gox. So yeah, it's an interesting world we live in. Let's put it that way. You sold the Carnies for 20 Ethereum each. Okay. So you do your peer review by replying on the post. Yeah. So basically, for you, you're going to be you're going to have a list of 3 people. You only have to do 2 of them, and you click on the name, you read their thing, and then you give something nice, genuinely give something nice you genuinely liked about their response. Then see if you can find some weakness in the argument. Is one of the premises wrong? Is a reference not what they claimed it was? Does the logic not work? And then finish with another thing that you liked, genuinely liked about their post. And that is in the add comment. Okay. It is due Friday at 10 a.m. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So let's go over the ethical theories in a little bit more detail. Skip the Azot problem right now. So one issue that comes up a lot is the difference between ethics and morality. And it really depends who you're talking to and what their mood is at the time. The way that we typically use the difference between the words in America is to mean that ethics oftentimes refer to like your professional ethics, like the code of conduct for your profession, like doctors of medical ethics, lawyers of legal ethics, professors of professorial ethics, or whatever. And so you'll have like, a sort of a document that usually when you get your job, you sign and say, I will do X, Y, and Z. In the philosophical community, a lot of times they're just sort of used interchangeably or not, depending on the philosopher you talk to. So it just kind of depends. But oftentimes morality means your sense of right and wrong. So for example, if you are a pharmacist working by yourself out in Tehachapi or something, which a friend of mine did, and a person comes in and they want to get the morning after pill, right? And you're a Catholic. So Catholics don't believe in the morning after pill because they think it's a form of abortion. I think it's not technically, but I'm not a pharmacist, so don't quote me on that. So anyhow, so the person might feel personally like it's an immoral action, but their professional code of conduct says they have to dispense the medication. So that would be a conflict between ethics and morality. And does anyone know how this gets resolved? Because I know a lot of pharmacists, by the way. And does anyone know how this conflict between personal morals and professional ethics gets resolved? Yeah. Or you want to take a guess? Or how would you handle the conflict? You're a pharmacist. You're asked to dispense medication you're morally opposed to. You don't let another pharmacist do it if you don't want to do it. Yeah, that's normally what happens. What if you're the only pharmacist at your pharmacy at the time, then? You have to give the customer what they want, leave your own personal beliefs out of it, cry. You just work somewhere else, still give it to them, maybe send to another pharmacy. Yeah. So there's a 20-mile rule, I believe, here in California, where if there's a pharmacy within 20 miles that is willing to dispense the medication, you can refer them over there. That said, most, maybe I shouldn't say most, but a lot of pharmacies have multiple pharmacists, and so they'll just have the other pharmacist fill the medication usually, and it usually doesn't come up. So, that said, if a pharmacist thinks that you are engaging like drug-seeking behavior, for example, you come in with a prescription for Oxy or Vicodin or something like that, and you're like acting weird, then the pharmacist can just refuse to dispense it to you if they think that you're engaged in drug-seeking behavior. A lot of people will go to pharmacy after pharmacy trying to find a place that'll fill a script for Oxy for them, and then they either take it themselves or they sell it on the street. And so there is a morality is beliefs, while the ethics is like the rules of your profession. That's generally how it's used here in America. But like I said, if you read, philosophy, a lot of times you just use the terms interchangeably. Like I said, it just kind of depends who you talk to. So I'm not going to give you a definitive answer on this, just because it really does depend on who you're talking to. So, freelance pharmacy would think, thank you. Yeah, the feds would probably come in and talk to you about that. The assignment for the extra credits, which is due on Friday. So on Friday at 4 o'clock, a speaker is going to give an introduction to Python. And Python is a programming language. It's very commonly used for beginner programmers. We're in fact going to learn it in this class later in the semester. And if you come to this one, it's probably going to help, and it's extra credit too. So he's going to spend an hour and he's just going to go over the basics of like how to program in Python. So it's a great opportunity for you all. We're going to start with an even easier programming language called Scratch, but you should be able to see from the Python extra credit on Friday at 4 o'clock here on Discord that it's pretty easy to pick up. And like I said, it'll help with later in the semester as well. So, grab the extra credit. And it's not due on Friday. So Canvas is kind of weird. Like I put the due date as 4 o'clock on Friday so that like it'd pop up on your calendar, right? So you know when it is. But the actual due date is a week later. So if you submit it 3 days later, it'll accept it. It'll mark it as late, but I don't, that doesn't matter. Oh no, it's late. It's 0% penalty, whatever. Do you guys understand? So I do it that way just so that you can see on your calendar like when the extra credit is. But the actual deadline for basically everything in this class is a week after, an event. So, does that make sense, Hershey? All right, so pharmacies, basically they can refer to other pharmacies in the area if they're not comfortable filling a prescription. 20 miles is generally considered how far you can ask somebody to drive to get a fill from another pharmacy. And also if they think that you're engaged in drug-seeking behavior, they can just refuse to fill as well. Okay, so I'm going to be using the terms more or less interchangeably, but just be aware that there is, oftentimes considered a difference, depending who you talk to. Okay. So ethics in computer science. So one of the biggest problems I think in computer science is that we don't really think about ethics that often as a field, right? In fact, Fresno State might be introducing a computer science ethics class, which would be kind of cool. You get the 2 days of ethics in this class. I don't know. Maybe we'll spend a little more time on it, but we are going to be talking about social issues in computer science, and all those social issues we talk about, you will be analyzing them from the framework of the ethical systems that we talked about on Monday and today. So you are going to get like some training in computer science ethics, but we're actually thinking about making a separate class. Maybe, who knows? We'll see if that happens. But there's a really big issue in computer science, which is that more or less computer scientists are concerned with if it's possible to do something and the technical challenge of doing something. That's like what gets our blood flowing. Like, oh man, how would I build a drone that could use facial recognition to fly up to somebody's face and shoot them? Let's see, I could probably use OpenCV to do the facial recognition, and see the drone. I'd have to get a programmable DJI Mavic 2 drone that I could program. And your friends are like, why are you making the Terminator? Why would you do this? If you turn loose a horde of, people killing robots on the world, you're going to make the world a worse place. Yeah, but it's an interesting technical challenge. Like, okay, so I need OpenCV, but it has to be running on the drone. Okay, maybe I can attach like a Raspberry Pi to it. Then what kind of gun do I use? Like, do I want a light gun because the drones really can't carry that much weight, but then it's not gonna kill the person. So maybe I need a heavier gun, And that's like, I'm being somewhat sarcastic here, but that's literally the computer science attitude, and it's really sad. So the main thing that people care about is just if you can do it, right? Not the ethical consequence. It's very rarely comes up. If you a friend of mine applied to a job in data science down in Irvine, and the job interview test was all things that I personally would have responded with, no, I wouldn't do that because it's unethical. It was doing things like, how can you scour Facebook to gather information on somebody to sell them, marijuana or something. Like, well, it wasn't marijuana, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, how can you violate people's privacy in a better and more efficient fashion to be able to sell them products and things like that. And literally my answer to all of them was like, I wouldn't, because this is unethical. And then they wouldn't hire me, right? And so there you go. So they would only hire people that, sort of lack the ethical, character to not violate people's privacy. So, what wonderful questions. Yeah, I was looking at all of them and I was just like, no, don't do that. No. And he was interested, like, oh, I was thinking I would use like SQL and like, no, just don't. Just don't do it. Well, I want the job. And that's fair, like, go to work for the evil empire if you have to. I've had friends work for Facebook and Microsoft and Twitter. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that, like, like we do just to see if we can. So when I studied facial recognition in grad school, and not once in the entire class did we talk about if facial recognition could be abused. Right? So we were studying all these different ways, using neural nets and eigenfaces and all this kind of stuff. Like, all of it was about how do we get the most accurate, you get a photograph of a person, what is the best algorithm to identify that person at the highest level of accuracy? And if you can do it from the front, can you do it from the side, from an angle, from above, and sunglasses, things like that. And so if you can get the basic face down, then they start mixing it up with masks and, people having different haircuts, different expressions and things like that. Not once in the entire class did we ever say, like, hey, could this be abused? Right? What if a government instituted, nationwide facial recognition to track every person as they walk down the street? Not once. It didn't even come up. Didn't even have a discussion of that. So, and I want to make clear that I'm not going to tell you what to think about it. I just want you to think about it. Okay? That's the kind of the, if you want to know what the thesis statement is for this entire class, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to tell you to think. You feel like that already happened? Yeah. The IRS recently said that if you want to log on to their website, you have to do facial recognition. And then everyone's like, what? And so they just pulled it like yesterday or the day before or something like that. But yeah, the IRS is like, yeah, we'll just use faces to log in. So you have to take a photograph, like you have to hold up your phone and, log in with your face. The IRS is a copy of your face, That's what you have to use to log in. And they just thought it was a great idea. Facial recognition at our airports. China has facial recognition in its social credit system in China. Right? So again, the thesis for this class is I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you to think. So just before you do anything, just be like, is this a good idea? Can it impact different, minority groups differently? Is it, like facial recognition is less accurate on people with dark skin? Like, how could that go badly? Right? So, for example, with facial recognition, the UK police were walking around facial recognizing people for criminals. And goodness. All right, whatever. When British police used facial recognition cameras to monitor crowds arriving for a soccer match in Wales, some fans protested by covering their faces. And then they deployed vans equipped with the facial recognition technology. It's part of a long-running trial in which they scan people in real time and detain anyone blacklisted. Yeah, they've been doing this kind of across the UK, and like there was a story. It's probably on that website that demanded I turned off my ad blocker, so I turned them off instead. That said that a black teenager was walking down the street with his friends. The police come over, like accost him because they're just driving around facial recognizing everybody. They're like, that's a criminal. They go over, they accost him. It's the wrong person, of course. And they're like, oh, sorry. And then they drive off, leaving the kid just like, like freaked out and stuff like that, And, there's two elements to that, which is one, does facial recognition, disproportionately impact people with different colored skin? And I'm reasonably certain the answer to that is yes. And the second question is, should they be doing this in the first place, right? So post your thoughts now on Discord. So, just but think about it. What are the trade-offs, right? Perhaps you can just drive around and find criminals that have an outstanding arrest warrant, right? Get murderers off the streets, Post your thoughts now. Vans driving around, facial recognizing people. Police accosting you if your face matches something in a database. Enter your votes now. I like it. Wouldn't be a bad idea. iPhone users, yeah. iPhones have face unlocking on them, right? So you can hold up your phone, and it'll unlock based on your face. I think the intentions are good, but is an unethical way of violating privacy. I think it'll allow it. Sounds good. Yeah. It's a good idea. It can go bad very fast. I feel like society is moving swiftly, but because we're making that way, I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah, it's like it's a different world than it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Sure. Sure. Even 20 years ago, the internet was a thing, and people were using the internet to buy books off Amazon. But this kind of stuff we didn't have, right? In the good old days, old man yells at cloud. Trust me, the good old days weren't that good either. But every time period has its own challenges. See, it sounds like a good idea, but also does not. I'm probably no, because it feels like a guilty until proven innocent, especially if the facial recognition thing is wrong. Yeah. Well, see, from the police's perspective, it's like they didn't arrest the kid, right? They just came up, asked for his ID, asked for what he was doing, stuff like that. Yeah, we didn't arrest him. The system worked, He could have been the criminal. But from the kid's perspective, he's just walking with his friends, having a good time. All of a sudden, the police leap out of a van, come over, call him a criminal. It's scary. Like I had an interaction like that with the police when I was in college. I was wearing green pants, walking through a parking lot at nighttime, and 2 cop cars came screaming up, and they leapt out and held guns on me, because I had green pants on. Cool. My heart was racing. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Because I had just parked, and I was just like walking back to my dorm. And like I got 4 cops, and one of them, like her hands like twitching, and the other guy's got this big old shotgun, and I'm like, what? Like I don't want to die here, And they come up, they search me, So there are 2 cops, 2 partners. There are 4 cops there. One of the cops comes up, starts searching me, finds my Swiss Army knife, starts screaming, "He's got a knife! He's got a knife!" And the cops with the guns, I'm like, I do not want to die because I have a Swiss Army knife on me. I have the knife right here. It's a present for my sister. It's engraved with my name on it. I don't know if you can see that. This is the knife that she was screaming I had on me. This is how long it takes me to open the knife out. And it's a shorter blade distance than the blade distance that needs to be a weapon in California. It's not a knife. It's a Swiss Army knife. You know, it's a tool. It's not legally a weapon. It's called the waiter. It slices bread and opens wine bottles. That's the model of Swiss Army knife. It is. It's the waiter. And she's like screaming, you know, he's got a knife, he's got a knife. And they're like all twitching. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm just sitting there like, you know, and, you know, it still bothers me today. You know, it still bothers me today. That was back in college. It still bothers me. You know, you have the same knife also. Get your belly. That's not a knife. This is a knife. They probably searched me because no one wears green pants. No, it's because a community service officer was biking by, and they saw somebody in the parking lot with green pants staring into the windows of cars, right? And so I parked, and I'm just like walking out, you know, and I made a mistake of like going into the canyon right there because there's a little stairway that went into the canyon. I had just gotten back from a backpacking trip in Anza Desert, Hellhole Canyon. I just came back, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to check out the canyon, you know, and I come out of the canyon, and that's when the cops like, you know, and pull the guns on me and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, you know, I just got here. I couldn't be stealing a car. I mean, my car's still warm. You want me to walk you over there? You can touch the hood. Like, I literally just parked. I just got back from a backpacking trip. And the big dude with the shotgun was like, oh, yeah? Where did you go backpacking to? I'm like, Anza Hellhole Canyon. He's like, oh, yeah? I go backpacking in Anza a lot. What flowers are in bloom right now? I am not kidding you guys. That's actually what happened to me. And I'm like, the Ocotillo's in bloom. The Ocotillo's in bloom. He puts his shotgun down. He's like, he's all right. Let him go. I am absolutely, actually not messing with you guys right now. That's literally what happened. He's like, yeah, you just got back there. The Ocotillo is in bloom right now. And I saw Fenapeppa and their palm trees, and there's some brewer's blackbirds that were there. You know, there's Choya. That should be. So, but I mean, that's literally what happened. They're like, all right, we'll let you go. Don't wear green pants again. They didn't say that. So yeah, and it still bothers me to this day. And that was like when I was back in college, that'd be 25 years ago that happened. So imagine you say the wrong flower. Yeah. Roses. This guy ain't backpacking. Sus because my multicolor changing shirt. I mean, to be fair, it probably does look a little bit suspicious coming up out of a canyon when it's, you know, nighttime. But at the same time, like, I don't know any car thieves that would like be checking out the nature in a canyon either. Like, why would a person who's stealing cars be like, oh, look at the sage bush? You know, like, look, they have coyote bush here. You know, I'm just in between stealing from cars. I'm just gonna hang out and check out the the wild bunnies in the canyon. Yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, so that kid was probably rightly freaked out, you know, and it freaked me out when that happened. I don't like having guns held on me, you know, especially when there's one cop with shaky hands and the other cops, her partner's like screaming, he's got a knife, he's got a knife. And I'm like, So, all right, so let's go through ethical systems. Color changing BMW, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's talk about ethical systems. We'll do it in a little more detail this time than last time. I found my stylus, by the way. So there's 5 major systems, ethical systems in ethics and morality. You'll sometimes hear them called moral systems or moral frameworks or ethical systems. Like I said, people are sort of divided on the terminology. I'm not going to take any particular stand on it. So, these are the 5 that will be on your midterms and finals. Okay, so like we did a quiz on it last time, we'll do another quiz on it today. And you might notice that the consensus theory is not on there because, you know, just going along with whatever the group thinks. doesn't seem to be a very reliable way of knowing right from wrong. Even though it is probably what most people do. If you hear people getting upset about something, then you have a tendency to get upset about it, and vice versa. It's one of those reasons why internet witch hunts, mobs emerge and things like that. So. I love knives would always lose them. Yeah, that's why I don't carry mine anymore. Especially because I used to fly a lot. And so I'd always forget and then go into airport security and they're like, you can't have them. I'm like, damn it. And then I have to walk back to my car and take the knife out and put it back in. But it just became too much of a hassle to carry a knife on me. Even though they're not a weapon in under the law, right? There's was it 3 inches? Don't quote me on that. Okay. So yeah, a lot of the, a lot of people do just kind of absorb their morality from other people, but in philosophy we sort of want people to kind of think about it, right? I'm not going to tell you which one of these 5 you should be, but I'm just going to tell you to think about it. Which one appeals to you more? Which one resonates with you? Which one do you think's right? Which ones do you think's true? Okay. And the other one that we had on Monday that I didn't put on here was legal. What is legal is what is right, and obviously that has issues with the Nazis, right? The Nazis were legally, dispossessing people of their possessions and murdering Jews as well as homosexuals as well as Roma as well as whoever else they didn't like, right? But it was legal, right? And so I think most people agree that just because something's legal doesn't mean that it is right. Although I think it does go the other way. I think most people think, I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people think that the law should sort of reflect what is right and wrong. If slavery is morally wrong, then it should be illegal to have slavery. If murder is morally wrong, there should be a law against morality. And that gets sticky when you get into things like, well, what if you think adultery is wrong? Should there be a law against adultery? What if you think that doing drugs is wrong? Should there be a law against drugs? And so that's, outside my pay grade. I have no answers for you on that. But that's the reason why legal making things moral is not on here, is because most people can point to examples of laws that make no sense. For example, if you're for gay marriage, you're probably aware that it was illegal until recently, right? And so, but I think most people who support gay marriage would not say that it was immoral to get married while it was illegal, right? They're not the same concept. Okay, so let's go through these 5. Okay, divine command theory is pretty easy to understand. Looking at the test scores from last semester, I think most people got this one right on the quizzes and on the midterms and finals. And it basically boils down to your religion saying, that's wrong, you can't do it. And then you're like, okay, because I'm a member of this religion, my religion says it's wrong, I believe in my religion, therefore it's wrong, right? It makes sense, right? If you think that the Bible contains the truth, and the Bible says murder is wrong, it's in the 10 Commandments even, it's that important, that it's right there, then yeah, you agree that murder is wrong, right? So, that it's a pretty easy to understand ethical system, So, go through the 10 Commandments for the important bits, and go through the 617 mitzvah. If you want the full story, or is it 613? 613, damn. Off by 4. So there's 613 commandments in the Old Testament. Not just 10, right? There's 10 in the 10 Commandments, but there's 613 commandments total in the Old Testament. And so, Jews will go and study all 613 and the contexts in which they apply. If you have a law saying you cannot create a fire on the Sabbath, how does that translate to electrolytes? Are electrolytes fire? Is the purpose of the commandment to keep you from doing work on the Sabbath? Or is there something about fire in particular that you're not allowed to do? And if it's fire in particular, is it because of the heat or because of the light? And so Orthodox Jews won't turn on lights during the Sabbath because they feel that when they hit a light switch, there's a spark on the inside. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think light switches spark, but I could be wrong. When you throw a light switch, then it sparks. That's a fire. You've created a fire on the Sabbath. Can't do it. And so if you go to Orthodox Jewish communities, you will have lights that turn off on timers, turn on and off on timers. There are elevators that open and close without you having to hit a button, because that's also prohibited in Orthodox Judaism. And so you just wait, and the elevator comes down, the door opens, you walk in, you don't hit a button, the door closes, it goes to the next floor, opens, goes to the next floor, opens, and you just wait for your floor, and then you get out. And that's every Sabbath. The elevators are put into Sabbath mode, and your lights in the house and things like that. So, yeah, they don't spark. It would be. It seems dangerous to me if they sparked. You know what I mean? Like you got drywall right there. I don't know. I'm not a spark specialist. So, yeah, and so, but there are other branches of Judaism other than Orthodox. There's Orthodox. There's Reform Judaism. There's Conservative. What's the other one I'm missing? Orthodox, Conservative, Reform. Are those three modern, maybe? Is that? I feel like I'm missing one of them. So I apologize. So yeah, and so there's kind of like three major branches of Judaism, maybe four, maybe five, according to the Wikipedia page, and they have different takes on that, right? So like a Reform Jew would have no problems turning a light on and off on the Sabbath. It's not that they're less Jewish; it's just that their interpretation of these commandments are different, and so that's one of the downsides to divine command theory. Is that like, well, you got this law prohibiting creating a fire on the Sabbath, and well, like some of them might just be like, well, the goal is to just not do work on the Sabbath, like it's prevent you from cooking, right, or whatever, right? So they cook the day before and then they eat it on the Sabbath, and so it's the same Bible. It's the Jewish Bible, right? Jews don't call it the Old Testament, by the way. They call it the Jewish Bible, or the Tanakh, or the Torah, and then you have the Talmud, which is the interpretations of the scriptures and things like that. But people can have different takes on it, and so that's a downside. Is that it's like, all right, well, you have don't murder, but like, okay, what is murder? If you have capital punishment, that's not murder, right? Because murder is unlawful killing, but what does it mean to have a lawful killing? If you just can change the law to like murder somebody, that's it gets tricky. So pros and cons of divine command theory. For one thing, it does provide an absolute code of morals, right? Here's 613 things you have to follow. Do the best you can. Good luck, right? No, they don't do that. They study it, right? And it provides continuity and tradition. And especially if you had an Orthodox Jew, you probably wouldn't see, like if you sent them back in time, they'd probably like be able to hang out with people back then. There's a continuity, right? And there is benefit to stability and tradition and things like that in human society, right? When things change too fast, like it makes people anxious, right? The vans drive around recognizing people's faces, right? Like, whoa, maybe we should think about this first, right? Like change makes people nervous, and tradition kind of makes people feel safe and comfortable, right? So there are benefits to tradition and stability and things like that. And so like if you're a Buddhist and you're like, hey, Buddha was a pretty wise guy, like I think that he makes a lot of sense, then and I'm not that wise, then you can sort of like it's the same reason why like you go to college, right? Like you hopefully your professor knows more about computer science than you, and then they can impart that knowledge to you. And in a certain sense, divine command theory is the same way for morality. That your religion, your religious figures know more than you about ethics, and they can impart that to you. And at a certain level, you just kind of trust they're right because they've thought about it more, or they're wiser than you, or whatever. Or you can look at the last 1,000 years and be like, look, people have been following this code of conduct for thousands of years, and it seems to work out pretty well. So who am I to say it's wrong? That kind of stuff. Now, downside is that it absolutely is unhelpful if you have people of two different religions talking to each other, right? So like if you have a Jew talking to a Buddhist and he's like, you shouldn't eat pork, and the Buddhist is like, you shouldn't eat meat at all, then there's kind of no way of resolving that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and then the Muslim will say, well, you shouldn't eat during daytime in Ramadan, and pork, and Christians are like, Catholics are like, you shouldn't eat anything but fish on Fridays. Like there's no real common grounds by which people across religions can really sort of resolve these differences. Because like, I'm a Catholic, I think you shouldn't eat meat on Fridays. I'm a Jew, you shouldn't eat pork ever. I'm a Muslim, you shouldn't eat pork ever, and also not during daytime on Ramadan. Buddhist, like, you shouldn't eat meat ever, and like you just can't. There's really no way of resolving that. It's just like, here's what I believe. Okay, cool. Here's what I believe. All right, cool. And that's about it. That's all you can do. Okay. Then the big objection to divine command theory is, does religion make things good, or is it just recognizing good things? Right. So even if Buddha hadn't said, don't eat meat or whatever, would it still be wrong to eat meat? Right. And that's a big question with divine command theory. Right. Does it make things wrong? When God comes down and says, you shall not mix and match woolens and linens. I don't know if you guys know about that, but in Judaism, you cannot wear clothing that has both wool and linen in it. It's the Shatnez law. Did it become immoral then? Right? Like, because the law came down at a certain point in time. Was it okay before and then changed to be wrong afterwards? Like, does it make it good, or was it just like always wrong and people should have just, been aware of the fact, and maybe we just weren't aware of it or something? Or maybe it's contextual, like maybe that law came about because some people that were sacrificing kids in a neighboring country, they were famous for wearing mixed woolens and linens, and maybe it's just a contextual law that just says, look, don't dress up like those guys, because then they're going to think you sacrifice babies as well. There's a lot of tough questions there. And then of course you have like atheists who don't believe in any religion, and so it's like, well, most atheist friends I have are like, no, I want to have a moral system, and so divine command theory absolutely does not help with atheists. And it also doesn't help, like, if you're making a country, right? Which religion should be enshrined into law? And that's that's a doozy, right? Because a lot of countries have state religions, right? And then it's rough if you're a member of a different religion, right? So it's great if you maybe it's great, I don't know, if you're a member of that religion. But if you have a state religion and you're not a member, yeah, it's not, you're in a society that basically has different values than you. Okay. So ethical hedonism, utilitarianism. So consequentialist theories are those that look at the outcomes of actions, right? So like we talked about last time, like if a person's dying on the street, you try to help them, but you accidentally kill them. Like you move them, like you're not supposed to move somebody who has a spinal injury, right? But you move them like to get them out of the street, you accidentally kill them, right? So consequentialists look at the outcomes of acts, right? You killed that person. They wouldn't have died otherwise. They were all right. Just waited for a paramedic. You killed that person. You did wrong, right? That's a consequentialist viewpoint, like where you look at the outcome. And a lot of people on the Help Center were saying, yeah, I'm a consequentialist. Like, look at the outcome, If you're at the State Department, you accidentally launched a nuclear weapon, that's a bad. You did a bad thing, right? You accidentally wiped out humanity. Bad. Evil. Ethical hedonism is a specific form of utilitarianism, which is a specific form of consequentialism. So there's many schools of thought and many categories and ways of categorizing these things. I'm going to talk about one form of utilitarianism. I might talk about rule utilitarianism a little bit, but I'm only going to talk about one to just keep things simple for you guys. So, and it's because it's easy to understand. So ethical hedonism is this. Pleasure is good, pain is bad. Done. Okay? So if you want to see if your action is good or bad, you add up how much pleasure it creates across all people. It's not you, it's just all people. And add up subtract all the pain that it causes. And if it creates more pleasure than it causes pain, it's good. And if it causes more pain than pleasure, it's bad. Simple as that. Okay. So that's why I teach this one. It's a very simple system, right? Now you might have questions like, all right, how do you monitor pleasure and pain? How do you measure it? There's no ruler that measures how happy somebody is. You know what I mean? Like you can't just be like, oh, you were 5 units of happy. Oh, you're 2 units of painful. Therefore, it's a net +3. Like, there's no objective way of doing that. But, utilitarians would be like, you can kind of eyeball it. If you walk up and you punch somebody, you cause pain to them. You might be amused a little bit, but you caused more pain than you enjoyed punching somebody. Therefore, it was an evil action. We have to tell social media it can't be measured with our face. Yeah, no, that is true. There are, in fact, I talked to a company and they make software that can look at people's facial expressions and determine what emotion they have on their face. And they do this in movie theaters. And so you would go to a movie theater equipped with this camera system. The camera system watches the crowd, and when they're like, the monster comes out of the closet, or they laugh, ha 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 ha. Then the camera's sitting there watching the faces of everybody in the movie, and it reports to the movie maker, like, oh, this is a moment where everyone laughed, and then you told another joke here, and like a couple of people were on, they didn't like that one, cut that one out, and they actually use that to like edit movies because you can just show a large crowd of people. They don't have to fill out forms, and they don't remember moment to moment what worked, what didn't work. And so with this, you could be like, that joke failed. That joke flopped, right? But they would, you could make an argument for ethical hedonism there, right? Where you can actually measure how much pleasure the audience has, like, that was hilarious, and how much, they have, and you can determine if the movie is moral or not. Okay. So, pleasure, by the way, doesn't mean like just like getting high or whatever. Pleasure is a word that means all positive emotions, right? So a sense of self-worth, physical health and well-being. If you're sick and you get better, that sense of pleasure of just like, oh, thank goodness, I'm better now. I'm not sick anymore. Being sick sucked. I'm yay. Winning a competition, exhilaration. Maybe somebody like petting your head. You're like, that feels nice. Like there's all sorts of different kinds of pleasure. And so basically you just tally all of them up. You subtract out how much pain, and pain is again not just like getting hit, but like if somebody comes up to you like, you suck. You're horrible. That's pain, right? That's emotional pain, right? And so misery, suffering, grief, illness, guilt, shame, social exclusion, boredom, all of these things are forms of pain in ethical hedonism. It's more than just sort of like getting, punched and, getting high on drugs or something like that. There's a range of things that are pleasures and pains. And so ethical hedonism seeks the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So maximize the amount of pleasure for the most number of people. It's just a mathematical equation. That's ethical hedonism. It's very simple to understand. Okay. That was Bentham that came up with that. And then John Stuart Mill in the next generation expanded the notion of pleasure to include like pleasures of the mind, like the satisfaction of reading a good book, things like that. And he felt that kind of pleasure was higher than physical pleasure. So he's like, look, if you had to choose between getting laid and reading like Harry Potter, obviously a sensible person would choose Harry Potter. Like that's just not a question. The pleasures of the mind are greater than the pleasures of the flesh. So so there's different people that have different viewpoints on what is there better pleasures than others? Most utilitarians, I think, would think that like doing heroin is, sure, it creates pleasure, but it's not not a very good one, like, and so, they do, there's a lot of, like, fiddly bits in there that, that people disagree on. And the big trouble with ethical hedonism is that sometimes there are actions that we would consider immoral, like torturing somebody, um, even if it causes more pleasure than pain, right? It's like in Rome. Rome did some pretty jacked up stuff, right? In the gladiatorial games, right? The worst thing that I heard was that they would get a fat woman and a dwarf and give a dwarf a spiked club and have them fight in the gladiatorial arena until the woman bled to death from just puncture wounds all over her body, and people just thought it was the funniest thing ever. I think that's horrific. I don't know if it was real or not. I mean, there's a lot of stories about the gladiatorial games. I don't know if it's real, but it illustrates the point, which is that you have 40,000 people in the Flavian amphitheater, the Colosseum, and they're all like, "Yeah, it's so funny, woo!" It's just one person dying, and so 40,000 people's pleasure does not outweigh, the death and torture of one person, and that's a real problem for utilitarianism, right? Because we would say, nah, like most people would be like, that's horrible, that's horrific, Ah. So, no responses on no responses on chat to that one. Yeah, it's fair. And they also have the problem of what if somebody just like really liked hurting people, right? Then what if they just super like a million times enjoyed just punching people? In that case, it's ethical for them to punch people because they enjoy it so much more than the pain they inflict that it's moral. They should just go around punching people in the face all the time. That's ethical, And so there's some pretty serious problems with this viewpoint. So please reply on chat. We're basically out of time for today. We'll finish up the other three on Friday. I hope you enjoyed our talk of NFTs and a bit on facial recognition. That's an important social issue in computer science right there, facial recognition. And then our discussion of divine command theory and ethical hedonism. So post your thoughts on DCT, divine command theory, and ethical hedonism on chat, and then I will see you all. Yeah, you can say thank you and bye, but no, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts on either divine command theory or ethical hedonism. What you like, what you don't like, which one resonates with you more, maybe, and then we'll get to the other three on Friday. Okay. So again, thanks to you all for coming out, and I'll see you on Friday. Make sure you get your peer reviews done. All right, peace.